Well, it turns out that Donald Trump doesn't actually need to travel halfway around the world for world leaders and investors to laugh at him. He's perfectly capable of doing that right from home base in DC. Off the heels of welcoming Mohammed bin Salman to the White House yesterday, Trump spoke at the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum this afternoon, and it was a doozy. It was a greatest hits of kind of weird throwbacks. It was supposed to be a speech about the economy and international investment, but of course, because Trump doesn't really have anything to go off of right now in terms of the economy being good, or he doesn't have actual investment to tout other than the fake $21 trillion number he comes up with for foreign investment, he sort of delved into these weird old greatest hits for the first half of the speech before ending with some very alarming, strange comments about the economy in the back half of the speech. But kicking things off, he spent a weird amount of time in this speech talking about COVID, which makes no sense because it was 5 years ago and it's over with, and it has nothing to do with investment or the economy. But I think he just wanted everybody to know that if COVID hadn't happened, he still felt very confident that he would have won. Let's take a look at why he believes that's the case.
Never forget, I met with pollsters the day before I got the news about COVID, but I met with two pollsters because we were starting to think about the next election. They said, sir, if George Washington and Abraham Lincoln came back from the dead and they aligned and they went for the president, vice president as a combination, you'd be beating them by 25 points. And then the next day I was told that something strange is happening. There's a lot of death being reported in a certain country. I won't tell you which one because that country is well represented here, but you know which one. And
First of all, it's absolutely false. I mean, Trump's approval rating at that point in his presidency was in the high 30s and low 40s, kind of where it is now. He was underwater with independents, if we're actually going back to look at and confirm those numbers. So none of that is true, but he is still so hung up on losing the 2020 election that he's just going to keep talking about it over and over to try to convince people that he really would have won. And now he's trying out this new thing of, well, if COVID hadn't happened, maybe I would have won, or I would have blown everybody else out of the water. But at the end of the day, nobody cares about the fact that he's talking about fake matchups with dead presidents that has nothing to do with why he's there talking in the first place. But he kept talking. He kept on this COVID line again, and he called it a great time. He called COVID an amazing time. Let's look at what he had to say about why he thought COVID was such a great time for the country.
but we did great, and then we started doing the gowns and the masks and the goggles and the ventilators. We were sending ventilators all over the world. We became the king of ventilators. But what a period of time that was for all of us. But despite that, we had the greatest economy in the history of our we had the greatest economy in the history of the world.
So were we the king of ventilators because we had more people on ventilators than any other developed country in the world because of Trump's mishandling of the pandemic? Was the mass death event amazing? I'm curious. What was so amazing about that time? The economy was also not amazing. If we will all recall, we dipped into a major recession. There were huge job losses. There was nothing amazing about that time, despite the fact that he thinks it's great that we were sending ventilators all over the world. Um, and he kind of concluded this nostalgic 2020 chat by, of course, talking about the election. Let's see what he had to say about it.
All of this, the numbers. So when I left, which was a rigged election, by the way, but that's okay. They used to go crazy. I'd say rigged. Nobody complains anymore because now they realize it was, and it's been proven, and it continues to be proven. But
So we know that mass voter fraud has not been proven. This has been tried over and over again over the past 5 years. Not only from the 2020 election, but there have been several GOP states that have done recounts and audits and court filings to look into voter fraud, and no court filing in the past 5 years or ever before that has ever found that there was meaningful voter fraud anywhere in the country, and any voter fraud that has ever actually meaningfully changed the outcome of an election. When full states and full elections have been audited, they have found, examples of voter fraud that might have been in the single digits or low double digits, but nothing serious. And a lot of times that voter fraud is found, it is registered Republicans who are voting multiple times. So this whole idea that and he's never going to stop running with this. He is such a frail and fragile, ego of a man that he's always going to talk about this. But it is been proven time and again. And so everybody's just kind of sitting there for 10 minutes while he's talking about 2020, and it has nothing to do with the state of the world right now and the state of the economy that he is responsible for and doesn't seem to care about. And he doesn't seem interested in putting any effort into actually fixing the economy. He is purely focused on fake numbers and making it seem like he's doing something for the economy. So we've talked about the fact that he keeps talking about the U.S. having $20 trillion in foreign investment this year, which isn't true. But he kind of narrowed that down today because he's talking to a lot of people from Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And he was touting the fact that, at least he claims, that Saudi Arabia has agreed to invest $1 trillion into the U.S. economy. That is not true. The entire Saudi Arabian GDP is $1 trillion. They are not investing their entire annual GDP into the United States. And the problem with this is nobody is following up with this administration to say, where are you getting these numbers from and what do they mean? Scott Bessent isn't able to clarify what Trump means when he says this. Nobody knows who's giving Trump these BS numbers, but he keeps saying them over and over. And even when he doesn't have numbers, he's just spouting lies that aren't backed up by numbers that sound good. And so that is what he said when he moved into talking about job numbers in the US today. Let's take a look at what he said.
I view everything as jobs now because I don't care. I care about jobs. And we have more jobs. It was just announced. We have more jobs right now than we've ever had in the history of our country. Those are big numbers. It's like crazy. It's just a great stat. More jobs today than we've ever had in the history of our country. And we're going to be producing a lot more are coming. In my first term, we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. And now we're...
First of all, we do not have more jobs in the economy than we've ever had before. Employment numbers and actual job numbers peaked in 2023. And there have been, especially due to Trump's trade war this year, more than 1 million jobs lost in our economy. There have been several months of negative job growth. Trump's own Bureau of Labor Statistics will not release job numbers for October, which should concern everybody. This is not a strong jobs market right now. And Trump didn't. That's the thing is, this is such a blatant lie that Trump couldn't even BS numbers around it and even try to provide some numbers. He just very generally said most job numbers ever. Not true. Pretty easy to prove that that's a lie, but I think he just doesn't get called out on it. So he's going to keep saying it because what's somebody to do? Go up there and ask him about it. And so I think we drown in all of these lies that he says time and again. And so there are so many that people forget to follow up and say, hey, you said we had the most jobs in the country than we've ever had before. What did you mean by that? Because he will lie about 50 other things between now and dinner time, and people will forget about that one. And that is just what he does. That's part of his shtick. It's so much that it is hard to keep track of everything he's saying. But the most concerning part of this speech was his continued attack on the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, and the independence of the Fed. And what clearly looks like trouble that Scott Bessent is in as a result of his unwillingness to attack the Fed as well. Let's take a look at what Trump had to say about Jerome Powell and Scott Bessent.
Rates are down despite the Fed. I mean, Scott, you got to work in this guy. He's got some real mental problems. No, he's something wrong with him. It's just sweet. I'd be honest. I'd love to fire his ass. He should be fired. Guy's grossly incompetent, and he should be sued for spending $4 billion to build a little building. I'm building a ballroom that's going to cost a tiny fraction of that, and it's bigger than the whole thing put together. You got to work on him, Scott. The only thing Scott's blowing it on is the Fed. Because the Fed, the rates are too high, Scott. And if you don't get it fixed fast, I'm going to fire your ass, okay?
Now, Jerome Powell and Scott Bessent are some of the few people who are keeping the economic markets feeling a bit reassured. I mean, Scott Bessent less so. I personally have absolutely no respect for Scott Bessent. I think he has demeaned himself to stay in Donald Trump's good graces. But I think, you know, economists and the markets trust him to a degree. They obviously trust Jerome Powell at this point. And so to see Donald Trump blatantly attack Scott Bessent on stage, and also attacks Jerome Powell in a time where there are only a few months left in his term, and Trump also does not have the legal authority to fire Jerome Powell. We saw that when he tried to fire federal board member Lisa Cook. And the courts overturned that. He can't do it. So if he can't do it, Scott Bessent surely can't do it either. And I think that is sort of, you know, the whole problem behind this is Trump is recycling old things that he knows he can't do. And this speech was just an old man who has run out of ideas, who has run out of credibility, who has run out of ways to sell the American people snake oil on the state of the economy. And it's showing, and things keep getting worse. That is it for me today. If you liked what you saw in this video, throw a like on it. Follow the Demwins Media YouTube channel. Follow me at buildingthebench.substack.com, and we will keep bringing you the news as you need to see it. Thanks for watching.